Hello, infinite beings. Today on episode 4 of Infinite Muses podcast, we have the lovely muse, Fabienne Claude of Go Green Fashionista. She's a producer, creative director, yoga instructor, public speaker, and published writer. Welcome. So good to have you.
Thank you. We got the side hair thing going on here.
Yeah. We all got pretty hair. Look at us. Quarantine is all growing extra long too.
I finally got a haircut last week, though. I was like, so excited. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yesterday, for the first time since all of this. So.
You're like, I don't need to. That's awesome.
Welcome. We're honored to have you. And yeah, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, currently I'm a yoga instructor. I started off producing fashion shows and marketing holistic companies and stuff with my company called Go Green Fashionista. I started that when I was in college. And so I just found a way to like talk about at that time, because eco-friendly, because it's been about 15 years now, eco-friendly things weren't really talked about back then. Natural ways of living, holistic living wasn't talked about as much as it's highlighted now. It wasn't talked about then. So I used to put on fashion shows, produce fashion shows all over South Beach, Miami, the late night clubs and stuff like that. And then wanting to break away and doing my own thing. I was a lover of vintage clothes at the time. So I just came up with that idea of really just pushing eco fashion. And with doing that throughout the years, it evolved and I started meeting other eco-friendly designers. I started getting into contact with different humanitarians, environmental awareness projects and movements and stuff like that. So it became a cluster of me just promoting anything that's, natural and holistic.
Love it. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I have been to your night. I love that you offer a roots night with yoga, and it's all about finding your inner peace. I took your yoga class, and I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you to bring me into your community. And so I was able to share laughter a couple times.
Yes,
And for me, sharing laughter with new people and with new communities is my greatest joy. So thank you for being open to that, because a lot of people aren't open to the laughter and all of the benefits and all that. So I got to know you in our community, and I know that you're a leader in the Roots community, the African community, the Black community in Miami. You're a spiritual leader, and you're also a yoga teacher, and you're bringing the spirituality, this holistic, to that community. So just a little bit of your background or your thoughts from your perspective of everything that's going on with the, racial injustice, and maybe a little bit of your feelings with the George Floyd and the Black Lives Movement and all this that's happened.
You got it. Okay, so first, I started teaching yoga a little over 10 years ago. And luckily, because I feel like everything becomes aligned and you don't even know when it's happening at the moment until like years later, and you're like, that's what, that aha moment. So I'm certified in Kematic Yoga, which is ancient Egyptian yoga. More people know about it now, but it wasn't known too much back then.
By the way, I love Kematic Yoga. I fell in love with it. And so this is actually, you're my future teacher, because when I saw Kematic Yoga, I always studied Hatha, but when I saw this Egyptian style yoga, I was like, yes, I need to learn more.
Ooh,
it's kind of like vinyasa. But what it is that we don't use Western words. We use the ancient words. So for example, we're not saying sun salutation. We're saying, movements of the sun, or movements of Ra. Ra is the ancient word of sun. So it's just tapping into like the ancient ideology of things and using the words that were there, I guess, before it was westernized, right? So within teaching, I was able, and giving thanks, I was able to teach everywhere between Hawaii, the Caribbean. I went to Spain. I went to these different places, and I tapped into a universal people, like a universal thought, and I wanted to tap into a universal language. So I came up with my practice called Ancient Healing and Awakening. So you can still see the foundation of Kematic Yoga, but now I do it in a way that everybody can understand it, whether white, black, Hispanic, anybody can tap into this universal language. So it's not separated, because you still see the foundation, that Africa is always the foundation of, but I was able to like tap in where anybody can get it, and anybody can feel it at the same time, with not feeling, separated and thinking, no, this is just an African thing. So, so I don't call out like the African gods, where Kematic Yoga is that, I just more tap into, words like pyramid, be strong like a pyramid. I know, you've heard me say it, where, we get into where they call it, what is it? What do you guys call it? When you're in a pyramid? But what is it? Something downward dog. Downward dog.
Yeah.
There you
go. I'm like, triangle.
Gotcha. The word dog. But the downward dog. So instead of calling it a downward dog, we call it pyramid. Well, I call it pyramid. And I tap into the spiritual and the physical at the same time. So physically, you're feeling that strain, but spiritually, you're reminding yourself, look how long those ancient pyramids stood still. So if you see yourself divinely as like strong and bold and everlasting like that, that's that balance of physical and spiritual, where I was able to like tap into, bring
That's
it to the
beautiful. So you pretty much, you tap into this old ancient from Egypt, which is in Africa, style of yoga that's more universal to unite people and to bring, all people to yoga. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's what we do as yoga instructors. It's all about uniting people and bringing them inward, right? And,
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah,
everybody inside, we're all, the same.
Same, exactly. There's a foundation, and ancient healing and awakening, because everyone suffers through internal wounds, whether it's conscious or subconscious, or a lot of times internal wounds come from DNA, from what our ancestors went through, between even our ancestors, if our ancestors were necessarily were the ones that were being oppressed, or the ancestors that were being the oppressors, everybody still has that in them. Everybody is still feeling that internal like feeling in them, whether it's either or, so yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, this is interesting that you say this, because I think we all at some point have felt, oppression, at some point. And I think that right now the Black community, so many years of oppression, and this watching, this man be pretty much killed right in front of our eyes really opened up that wound, of so many years of oppression.
Big time.
And so this has opened up that wound. So that's why we see so many people very emotionally triggered right now by this, this situation. And it's bringing up a dialogue for us to understand also, like, white privilege, what that is, what prejudices are, what, a majority of our politicians are of white privilege, right? So when we see this happening, this is, it's not a pure reflection of, I'm sorry, there's like somebody standing in my front door taking pictures.
FedEx.
Is it FedEx?
Yeah.
And it's just like, he just keeps taking pictures in the front door, and it's really bothering me. What is he doing?
He's like delivering a package. I think it's probably like an Uber FedEx.
Oh, but he's not even in a FedEx car. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen in my entire life, but he was really distracting me.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing him. I've never seen a FedEx car come in a Tahoe. Anyways.
Too funny.
This is real, right? This is real. We're not editing it, so we're real people. No, anyway, so this, this is a reflection of, yes, this is, why right now we have to have this dialogue and this conversation, is because of the so many years of oppression that, and also, our politicians and our policymakers are affecting what's happening. The incarceration rate, and all this is very high for African Americans, and so we right now we just want to I think I want to highlight some really important that I have been doing research, really important positive news from all of this. And for example, there's a new bill right now that's going to abolish qualified immunity. It's going to make it easier to sue cops who violate civil rights, right? There's also going to be right now also a bill aiming to end court protection for police. Okay. There's a lot of people that were from the KKK that were in, that are, head of police departments, that are police officers, that are, policymakers in our Congress.
I saw that they were talking about making the KKK
a terrorist group.
Yeah,
they should
sure.
be.
As they should.
Still here. They're still here. The only difference is that they're not wearing the capes anymore.
Right.
But they're still
they're cloaked in other ways.
I mean, this injustice has been going on for so long. This is the first time that people are more, it's being vocalized more. It's being revealed more because we've known this for a long time. Everybody knows this. White privilege knows that they have the privilege, whether they subconsciously see it or not. Now it's being like the wound is being opened now. It's like, Black people have been suffering for so long and kind of it's like we adjust to it. We adjust to like what's happening because we're used to it, right? But, the Black Lives Movement and all these things that are happening right now are waking a lot of people up, and that's the positivity in it. Some people may say that the Black Lives Movement is, it's funded by white privilege, or it's funded by so many, it's funded by Soros, or these people.
Soros, yeah.
Everything's funded by him, apparently.
Yeah, everything's funded by him. I mean, we all know there's puppeteering going on, right? Right and left puppeteering going on.
The ones that are doing the writing, if you really look closely at those videos, it's not us doing the writing.
Yeah.
We usually come peaceful. I always say this, I've been saying this for 10 plus years, I've been talking about the injustice for a very long time. I've been cursed out, I've been unfriended, you know what I mean? With so many, in so many different ways, like, looked upon, and it's hard also to keep up with being so involved with the community without being judged. I've done events where, somebody say it's too many Black people, but what do you mean? Like, what about us? Why is it that if it's too many Black people, it's not a good party or it's not a good event? Why is that happening? Why is it that we have to push away? I've done things, and you've seen my Zen night. I'm just going to be real, as honest as I can be. And that alone got gentrified when I brought it to that certain location. So, and because I brought certain people in that didn't understand the culture, that didn't understand our voice. You can feel the empathy, white people can feel the empathy, they can feel that this is messed up, but they're not feeling it. Like, you can't feel it like how we feel it. Like, I cried. This is the first time that I cried for over a week. Like, every day I was just like, why is this happening? Like, why do we have to go through this? These people, we as royals of the earth, that started off, that sowed the seeds of this earth, planted the seeds, built this land. Why is it that the injustice is happening to us? And white privilege has been going on for a long time. It started way back in 7-Eleven, right? And if you really, really go deeper into the history, you would see that, there was a time that the rulers of the earth were African,
Right.
And then, Christopher Columbus came in. It started in those times when Christopher Columbus came in, and they have us believing that the Thanksgiving is beautiful, and these people came and brought family and food and friends, and none of that happened. They came into these islands and they enslaved, and this kept going on for years upon years until Haiti, 1804, where 1804, the Haitian Revolution kicked off. and they actually won. The French tried to beat them, the Portuguese tried to beat them, the Spaniards tried to beat them, and Americans, and they still for 12 years fought. And this is when you say it's a revolution, it is a revolution because we're feeling that ancestral energy from the revolution back then, whether if someone would say that they're Haitian or not, because there's another thing within Black culture that the lighter skin is separated from the darker skin. This is happening too, you know? So it's not just a white Black thing, it's a skin thing, and then it's the craziest thing ever, you know? It's time for us to wake up. The most beautiful thing that came out of it, that is coming out of this, is that everybody's waking up. White people are fighting for us, Black people are fighting for us, the whole world is fighting for us. And let's take it back to even slavery times. There were white people that were fighting for us too then. White people were lynched too, you know?
I'd like to
there are people. Yeah, there are people.
Okay, so recently the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi in particular, have a very famous photo with it's called a kente cloth, and it's worn by the Ashanti in Africa. It is made of silk, so the affluent wore it. The Ashanti were also known as the slave owners and traders. So the Ashanti's longtime ally was the Akwamu, were among the first ones to profit from the slave trade with the Europeans. So I just want to mention this because I like to see all sides of the story. The African people did sell off their own people to the Europeans.
Right. And a lot of people like to bring that part up. Yeah, it happened. I don't think that if you really also go deeper into that history and that culture of selling or whatever the case is, I don't think that they could even fathom how gruesome that the Europeans would have treated their people. Because remember, there's still maids today. You know, there's still people who are still doing these type of works that they call slave or indentured servants or whatever the case is. This is still happening. Africa till this day is the highest rate of fertility, which is the most people in the world, which ends up being the majority of the world. Black people are the majority, even though they call us minorities. It's impossible to be the minority when this big place that the whole world can fit into, this big continent, which is Africa, the whole world can fit into this continent. It's the biggest continent of the world. So that means if we use our common sense, we know that if this is also the biggest place where the most fertility rate is, that means there's African people all over the world. So I'm saying all that to say is that it was in numbers. They needed more people. You know what I mean? So they're giving off these people and they're saying, here, take them. But I don't think that it was ever thought that it would be as gruesome as how the Europeans treated the Africans once they got on that ship. Right.
So yeah, I mean, I think that this is just opening a dialogue for a lot of people. And then also, you know, just recently today, I don't know if you know anything. I mean, personally for me, I've always understood that there's a lot of, you know, racial injustices and police brutality. And I believe that the incarceration rate is, I'm going to read you a statistic right here, is higher for, you know, African Americans. So it says a May report from the APM Research Lab also found that the COVID-19 mortality rate for Black Americans is 2.4 times higher than for white Americans. While the report acknowledged limited and uneven data regarding indigenous populations, it stated that in New Mexico, which contains portions of the Navajo Nation, the indigenous mortality rate is 8 times as high as the white mortality rate. So, you know, this also it's a minority thing. I think that's happening. I think it's also with racial injustice, it's also, we should include other minorities that you know, have health disparities. There's also right now, you know, a lot of dialogue happening for people who are of Venezuelan roots because of the situation that recently, about 2 years ago, the founders of the Black Lives Movement took a picture with Maduro, who has pretty much, you know, been unjust with his own people. and also very brutal with his own people. And so the Venezuelans are all now coming out and talking about their story, right? Because that wound was tapped for them. So there's just like a domino effect happening too with this Black Lives Movement, which is great because, you know, what you were saying before, we all have our stories of oppression, right? And it's not really sometimes like a black and white issue, right? It's more of like a story of like of oppression and people being able to tell their stories of injustices, or the Native Americans coming out and saying, hey, well, we're disproportionately even more than African Americans of dying of COVID, you know? And so I think this whole situation is going to create even a domino effect of all the injustices with minorities, right? And I just think it's just an amazing time to be alive and paying attention.
The statistics are usually broke down in a way to break down the minds of Black people. You know, it's set up that way. It's set up that way. You know, again, we're majority of the world, so our numbers are always going to be higher. Whites are really the minorities. If you really reach out, if you really research that, you're going to see that there's less Caucasian, and it's a race that's falling out. If there's
Latino is like the highest population, I thought.
The Latino population
like
of minorities
in the world, yeah.
I'm not sure. We would have to do some research.
Yeah, I know, because they don't say these things. You know what I mean? They basically, if you know, also a part of slavery is mental slavery when they break down the minds of the people. If you believe that you're minority, what does that mean? Then you have no way to even stand in front of the majority, you know? So if the white people are calling themselves majority of the world, which is impossible.
It's not true.
Yeah, it can't be. Common sense, you know, it's very important that we have to start using our common sense. You know, you know, between them learning everything that the Africans taught them between 711 and 1492, taking all that information, stealing every type of information and knowledge that happens in Africa, burning everything, taking over the waters and the navigation and everything like that, till today, you know what I mean? They're running everything right now, you know.
Are you talking about the white colonialists? Who's running America? Oh, America.
America is in every country.
In every country.
Come on.
Go even to the foundation, which is Africa, and Africa is a little over 90% of the population of Africa is melanated people, Black people. So that means the rest of that is white, which is usually in the South Africa, is like the whitest part of Africa. But they own almost 90% of the land of Africa. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And so even people like Julius Malema, which came up with the Economic Freedom Fighter Party in South Africa, very intelligent man. And he came up with this party in order to get these white South Africans out of their land. Now, these people didn't do the crime, right? They didn't do the crime. Why are they getting kicked out? Well, they didn't do the crime, but they're reaping the benefits of their ancestors that did the crime. They're reaping the benefits of their ancestors that robbed the land, that killed and raped these people, you know what I mean? And they're reaping the benefits of that. And then these same people are selling off the land to their own because we can't afford to buy the numbers that they're giving out. So who is able to afford it? The people who have the jobs. And who has the jobs? You know, it's set up that way. It's set up to break down Black mind. It's horrible.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the part that's unjust. Yeah.
I think
that we have to change. Yeah.
Overall, 400 years. I'm sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Sorry. We're like having it's like kind of low here.
Time for the change, because last year, August of 2019 was 400 years since slavery in America. So there's been slavery over 400 years. America, even though they were the most wickedest in slavery, they were the youngest that brought in slavery. So last year, and if anybody believes in scriptures or whatever you believe in, we still know that in this particular history book says that after 400 years, now we're going to start seeing the change, and long behold, it's right on time, you know, and everybody now, it's not going to be a black and white thing anymore. It's going to start being a people, because there's Black people that still don't get it. There's Black people that want to stay oppressed. There's Black people that are content in their mental madness. You know, they don't want to wake up. They're not needed. You know, there's white people that feel it and they're like, man, this is unjust. We have to do this. So it's the mind now, it's the consciousness that's going to bring people together today.
Exactly.
Love it. Yeah. I love seeing that. And I really think like, it just really takes, you know, like, cause I saw something on I try my best to not watch the news. Like I'm from DC and I grew up very political, not like around politics. I have a lot of my friends live in DC all over, you know, all the different neighborhoods. And it just has to do with how we're raising our children, you know, like my parents, because my dad lived all around the world and he just said, be nice to people. Like that's it. You know, I didn't grow up with religion per se, you know, and I just grew up like all they told me was be nice to everyone, no matter what color they are. That's it. We're all the same. Yeah. And like it sounds so, it's so simple, but like so many people are ingrained to think that this person next to you is less than. Yeah. Why like that? And that's, it's an issue all around the world of just thinking someone is less than.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know it's written it's in schools too. So let's say your parents taught you to be nice to everybody, but when you go to school and you open up that book, they're teaching you something else, and they're not necessarily saying be mean. But you know, even in the Constitution with the United States Constitution was changed in the 50s, in the 1950s. That was yesterday. Right. You know, and before that, Black people were known as 1/3 of a human in the Constitution. Right. Mm-hmm. The 50s, that's yesterday, you know, and now they're going on with like, you know, they're talking about the vaccinations and stuff like that. And Black people are afraid to get vaccinated. Why? Because again, in the 1950s, Tuskegee experiment happened where these people came in and said they were going to cure Black people, and they came and they injected syphilis into them. Right. You know, they're doing it in Africa where they're injecting AIDS.
With the women, infertility and all that.
You know, it's so crazy to hear, you know, like some people.
It really is.
How horrible and how disgusting and genocide is real. You know, the UN admitted, and they admitted it, like you could research it, that they admitted in 2016 that they brought in cholera into Haiti after the earthquake, which affected and killed about 1 million people. That's genocide. It doesn't matter if you apologize, because they apologized, they admitted it, and they apologized. It came from Nepal, an Asiatic place. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they apologized, but guess what? 1 million people suffered from it. So Haiti has 12 million plus people, but if you take it to the Bahamas, which has 700,000 people, you wiped out a whole nation, which they've already done it in Australia when they committed genocide at the Tasmanian people. You know, there's a race of Black people that they came in. They're doing it now in Yemen. You know, it's genocide. It's a wipeout. They're trying to wipe out Black people, but it's really hard because it's like, how do you kill the queen? It's like, you know, you can't kill the bees unless you kill the queen bee. Right. You know, so it's like going to the source. That's why people like Bill Gates go straight to Africa. They're trying to go to the source, but we're still having babies. You know, so it's hard to hear it. And this is why we do need to have these conversations, because, you know, it's the George Floyd thing woke up a lot of people. And even with white people knowing that this has been happening and staying quiet, now aren't quiet anymore. Everybody's feeling this one. And it's a time.
No, I mean, this systemic racism is real, and it's happening, and it's happening in all over the world. And we have to be, you know, this is a big awakening for us to awaken to that, and to the injustices that are happening to our African brothers and sisters, our Black brothers and sisters right here in our own country. And so I thank you so much for coming and giving us your time and all this wonderful, beautiful knowledge. And
wait, we have one more question.
Oh, wait, sorry.
We have one more question. Who is a muse to you? We always ask that for all of our interviewees.
Okay, so I love Bob Marley. I don't know if it sounds cliche, but
Yeah. Muses can be men, beautiful men.
I love Bob. We are one.
Yeah, it's revolutionary. It's now like, if I swear, when we're
Started
done,
that revolution.
we'll listen to one song of Bob Marley, and I promise there's gonna be a line that's gonna be like, "That's what's happening today. This is how we feel today." And I'm really close to his granddaughter, which is also a muse of mine. I look up to her because she speaks out a lot about, all the injustice that's happening. So, and you guys are awesome. I was nervous about this. I didn't know what to expect. I love you, and I trust you. So that's why I said okay, because I didn't know where, like, what was going to be the premise, but we do have to talk about it. The uncomfort has to come out, and it's good. It's good that we're face to face and speaking about this in such a broad way. You guys are doing great. This is great. I could see more because our history is so rich, so yeah, you guys should get a part 2, part 3.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have you back on too.
Recommend more muses.
I mean, I love the African culture personally. I go to the Afro Roots Festival in Miami, African Festival with our friend, and I love your night that you do, cultural nights that night. And I feel people should be supporting the African community in this way. These are roots, this is the heart of the world is Africa, This is, red, yellow, green, what Bob Marley came out with the dreads and the vibe, that is the heart of the earth, and we need to honor that, we need to be in solidarity with we are from the earth, the heart of the earth, and we are one people, white, black, whatever, we are one love, one heart.
Yeah, and we're going to be seeing that in the next few years. You're going to see
Africa rise. Yeah. We're going to heal Africa.
Full time. Like, people say that George Floyd died, it's horrible, but let me tell you something. That death woke up a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
In every part of the world, in all creeds and colors, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
There's a ton of chaos, but the order and the beauty emerging,
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's all in divine order, sister. Thank you so much. And do you have any events or anything that you'd like whoever is listening right now to know about classes, yoga classes, or the things that you're offering?
Yeah, if you guys follow me online on Instagram, Fab's The Evolution, I'm always talking about it. I'm always sharing other events and my events. I do a lot of meditation and yoga, anything that's uplifting for the people, anything for the culture, and the culture is culture, just
I love it.
do an indigenous event, which represents all different cultures, and just to be informative, the wisdom, that's what I bring, wisdom and information, and love, no hate, just power,
Yeah. Jai Ma,
Wisdom, love, and power. Wisdom, love, and power.
Wisdom, love, and power. Thank you so much, wise, beautiful, ancient soul. And thank you for sharing your light with us and with the world. And we continue to support you, and we're here for you. Okay, much love. One love.
love.
Bye.
Bye.